You're listening to Music Tectonics.
Welcome back to Music Tectonics, where we go beneath the surface to review the seismic shifts changing everything in the music industry. I'm Dimitri Vitsa, I'm your host. I'm the CEO and founder of Rock, Paper, Scissors. We're a PR firm that focuses on music, tech, and music tech. And I'm at the DIY Musician Conference in Austin, Texas, and I've run into somebody that I've always wanted to talk to. I've got here with me Jackie Louet-Schul, the CEO and founder of Jaxsta. How are you doing, Jackie?
I'm great, Dimitri. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm a little out of breath running around this conference.
Right.
I went out and saw Questlove last night, which was awesome.
Epic.
After your great panel with him about
so exciting.
Creativity and data, of all things.
I know, right? Marrying the two seems a little odd, but it worked yesterday.
As soon as I heard about Jaxsta, I knew I wanted to have a conversation with you because I grew up listening to, well, vinyl, then tapes, then CDs. I would go to the public library in Queens, New York, and look for cassettes, and I discovered music at the library.
Wow.
And eventually made my way into the village, in the Greenwich Village in the city, and looking for vinyl and things. And I absolutely love poring over liner notes. And I've always liked really esoteric music. And I always wanted to know what instruments were being played.
Right.
So I was always digging for that, discovering actual instruments I'd never heard of, trying to figure out what the timbres and the sounds were. So I've always loved the information around music. It was part of my experience.
Me too.
And so you're doing something really interesting, and we could say it's about data, but it's really what I'm talking about. It's like this information that goes along with the music that sometimes kind of gets under noticed, gets under credited.
Totally.
So why don't you tell us what you're doing with Jaxsta? What is it, first of all?
First of all, what we're building is the world's largest official database of music credits. And how we do that is we get the data from the custodians of the data. So our feed comes in directly from record labels, from publishers, from industry associations like the Recording Academy and RIAA. Comes into our system, we deduplicate all of it, map it together, and then deep link it. So you were mentioning before about that quintessential vinyl experience where you look at the back of the jacket, which is where we got our name from, Jaxsta. I know a lot of people think I named the company after myself. I did not. My husband, actually, our co-founder Louis Schul, named the company because he was like, well, it's after the jackets and stars of the industry, so Jaxsta. I was like, that's really cool. I was paranoid people would think I named the company after myself, though. But the thing is that you look at a vinyl jacket or a CD booklet, and it would tell you everybody that was involved, who mastered the album, who produced it, who the songwriters were, who was a bass player, who was a backing vocalist. And it was such a beautiful deep dive to be able to see everybody that was involved. But in this day and age, that information's hard to find until our platform existed. But also, it's so much better than that vinyl experience in the sense that you can actually click on an individual's name and see everything that they've done, which is really cool because that aids music discovery in a big way.
Yeah, imagine you're holding a vinyl record jacket, you flip it over, and then you touch your finger, and all of a sudden 5 more albums pop up, or 500 more albums pop up, or something like that.
It's the coolest thing. We were looking at the credits for Skyfall with Adele. And I don't think a lot of people know that 85 performers are on that beautiful piece of music. And we clicked on one cello player, Claire, and something like 911 credits came up for her of different pieces of music that she's recorded on. That blows my mind.
Yeah. So where did the idea come from?
It actually came from, I transitioned from working in the film and television industry to working in music. I'd worked on some pretty sizable features in Australia. I had my first feature film that I worked on full-time was an extraordinary experience because I was assistant to the director and the producer of Star Wars, so not a small job. And in between features, because we don't have a prolific tentpole film industry in Australia, we have an amazing film industry, but we don't have film after film after film after film. So you'd work on a feature and then you'd have to scramble to find work, and I'd go from doing, working as George's assistant to folding T-shirts at David Jones, which is like the equivalent of Bloomingdale's. And then I would help a friend of mine, Jamie Hilton, produce music videos. And through that, I got headhunted to go and work at EMI, which was incredible. And in that transition of working from film and television to music, I discovered that we just didn't have an official database of all this information. And in the film industry, I was so used to using IMDB every day. Who was the cinematographer on this film? Who was the head of costume? Who was the head of makeup? Whatever it was, you were constantly looking up crew members. So when I transitioned to music, I wanted to find out who everybody was that was involved in a project, and I couldn't find it. To put that in perspective, it was 2006 when Ask Jeeves was the #1 search engine and MySpace was everything that we all used all the time.
Wow.
I know, I'm giving my age away here. So that's really where the idea came from, and it took a long time to be in the right space at the right time to actually be able to do something about it. And a big catalyst was my beloved father got very sick and ended up passing away from Alzheimer's. And there's nothing like that to motivate you to do something.
Yeah. Recognizing mortality and wanting to do whatever it is you're planning to do.
Yeah, and I mean, my love of music comes from my parents. My dad was a jazz drummer and my mum was an amateur singer. And I'm married to a songwriter, record producer, multi-instrumentalist. I can sing really well in the shower and the car, and that's about it. I ended up with no musical talent whatsoever, but a major appreciation for it. And that's really where it came from my parents.
Right, yeah. So initially it was an idea just like, oh, we should have something like this for music, right? But now you have to have a business model around it as well. So can you explain a little bit about what the business model is? And also then we can get into a little bit about what kind of problems it solves to have this access to data and connections.
So we have two business models that we'll be rolling out to market. The first is a B2B subscription model, which we've built for the industry, and it's been done through doing a lot of Q&A, if you will, with the industry. So it's kind of like a LinkedIn meets Bloomberg dashboard for anybody that works in the music business. So it's everything from people being able to update their profiles. So if you're an artist or a musician and you're a part of their team, you can update their profile image, you can update their social media handles, their bio, everything in real time. The moment you hit save, it's at the front-facing part of the product, of the platform. It also has chart alerts and a whole plethora of different assets to it. So if we've done our job well and you work in the music industry, we will save you at least 30 minutes a day. And depending on what you use it for, up to 2.5 hours. Everything that you need will be on you at all times, which is really exciting. So that's launching before the end of the year, Christmas 2019. And then next year we're launching our commercial API. So what we'll be doing is taking all those beautiful credits of who played drum, who played bass, all of that will be going into commercial API, which we will be on selling to DSPs and smart speakerphone companies. So when you ask a service, hey, who played drums on this track? Instead of answering according to Wikipedia, it will go, the drummer is Dave Weckl. Can I please have a playlist of Dave Weckl? And then the next thing you know, you'll have a playlist.
That's awesome. I mean, it's interesting because voice is just taken off, voice activation. And, I think people are asking questions about how they get into the mix with that. And people are starting to wonder at labels and artists and things like that. It's who's going to control that data? Who's going to populate that data? What happens if you have to update that data? Things like that.
Right.
So it sounds like Jaxsta has a role to play there. It's in a way, it's when the search engines were originally kind of first indexing and then crawling the web and things like that, that had a huge impact on search. And obviously we've heard for decades at this point that music is one of the biggest search things on the web, and now it's becoming the case with the smart speakers and hearables as well.
I heard somewhere that 68% of the requests that go to smart speakers are to do with music.
Yeah, that's big.
That blows my mind.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense with speakers. I mean, more so than a browser, because at least you can hear the music.
True.
It's the device. That's a lot of what the device does. But it means that there's this new search and discovery ecosystem that's emerging that the infrastructure hasn't been built for yet.
Very true.
So, Going back to this idea that what if you could press like on an old physical product and all of a sudden get exposed to all this stuff, because to me, like that's sort of like the metaphor of what's happening digitally. It makes me start to wonder, what are the new ways in which people are going to make discoveries as a result of having this massive database of credits and relationships between projects and people and things like that. I've seen various like almost like single-use websites or apps that will show like almost like a live infographic of these relationships between music. Some are streaming players and things like that, but somebody had to construct that each time, or maybe piece together use a database that's not complete, so you don't know, or you're like, something's missing here. It's not quite robust enough. Have you started to imagine what some future use cases will be once this is all in place? Like what types of interactions people are going to have with music, how it could change discovery and things like that over the course of time? Absolutely.
We're working on some data visualization tools, which I think are going to be so cool, which will map your journey and what you've looked at, and then also expose you to, hey, you clicked on this person. Do you know that they've worked with all of these different people? I think the two biggest things that I find when I use the platform are, first and foremost, I will click on an artist or a producer or a songwriter that I love, and then I'll see what they've worked on, and I'll always find something I didn't know that they worked on. Oh my God, they produced that, or they co-wrote that song. It's amazing. And then I find myself singing the song. And I love that in our platform you can see the lyrics and you can actually link off to different DSPs, so Apple or Spotify, to actually play the tune. I discovered that I have been singing the wrong lyrics to Kenny Loggins' Highway Through the Danger Zone for 20 years. That was a discovery, because I was actually reading the lyrics as I was singing it. But then I found myself, clicking through and just going on this journey. And I made it from our CIO, Phil Morgan, who is a walking encyclopedia of music, has constantly been telling me about Andy Wallace. And I made it from Kenny Loggins to Andy Wallace in 5 clicks, which was also like, wow, that is cool. You can go from Kenny Loggins to Andy Wallace in 5 clicks. Is amazing. That would be interesting to see what kind of relationships you see, not only with collaborators, but across genres, across absolutely scenes and things like that. And I love that about the platform too, because I really think it breaks down barriers. There are a lot of, before I worked at EMI, my repertoire of music was pretty much jazz, pop, classical, R&B. And then I moved to EMI and I got exposed to everything from hip-hop to country to singer-songwriter, and my whole world exploded. It was amazing. It was such a musical education. And with the platform, I feel like you really can go on that journey, because you just start clicking. Once you're in there and you find someone you love and you find a release that they've done, it's really hard not to go down the rabbit hole. Legitimately. Yeah. It's, people lose hours on this thing. So it's a B2B platform. Oh, well, it's B2C at the moment. So, well, not at the moment. Jaxsta.com will always be a free website for everybody. And then B2B is Jaxsta Pro, that's going to be launching before the end of the year. Does the B2C, it's free, there's no premium, there's no advertising, it's purely to expose people to this idea of music credits. So that is the IMDB of music at that point, and that's available already? It's available right now. Great. Jaxsta.com. Right. So people listening can go play with that and search for their favorite things and find new discoveries they've never seen before. And then obviously this kind of licensing of data phase will be rolling out as people show interest in, as companies, platforms, DSPs show interest in using it. And then there's this kind of database lookup pro feature as well. So what's the differentiation between the pro feature and the website? So with Pro, it's been designed for industry professionals. So we have chart alerts, for example. My husband and our friends in the music industry who are, prolific music makers will have multiple releases going to market at the same time. And right now, to try and find out how something is charting is quite a laborious endeavor. Also, just knowing that a song's been released. There are a lot of people that work on, on a piece of music, and sometimes not everybody is notified that worked on it, that it's actually been released to market. So we have everything from, release notifications to we'll let you know when something is charting. You have 450 different filters you can choose from, and we'll notify you that, your piece of music is now in the market, to, actual market information and really detailed calendar of events. So you can make sure that you're putting everything into your calendar for the year. The number of times when I first started the Jaxsta journey, I made 2 really expensive rookie mistakes. One was I booked a trip to the UK to do meetings, and I got 50% of the meetings I wanted because everybody was attending the Great Escape. And then I managed to top that and go to LA when Coachella was on. And not smart, but happened. And so I was like, we needed an industry calendar so people can plan. I mean, you and I are traveling all the time. We see each other at conferences all the time.
Yeah.
Music Biz in Nashville, Indie Week in New York, and now we're in Austin.
Yeah.
I might not see you on a regular basis, but I know I'm going to see you at a conference.
Yes.
And you need to be able to plan your year.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I like the notifications. It's like Google News alerts for the music industry.
Totally.
And pre-news. It's not even the news. It's the release date or something like that. And that's cool.
And there's much more to the product, but I don't want to give too much away before it launches.
Right. Got you. What kind of feedback are you getting from different parts of the music industry, the artist community? What kind of reactions are you getting?
It's been, honestly, it's been really moving, because this has been 6.5 years for me personally, and 4 years for most of the team. And I just have to give a shout out to the team, because, I'm obviously here right now, so a lot of people think that Jaxsta is me, but, our team are incredible, and we just wouldn't be where we are without them. So shout out to the Jaxsta crew. But it's been amazing. I had the head of a company send me the most beautiful email 2 weeks ago, just saying congratulations to you and the team. I use it every single day. It's totally changed my world. So I called him and I was like, oh mate, thank you for your email, I really appreciate it. And he's like, Jax, seriously, I've saved it to my browser and I think I hit it about 30 times a day. I was like, wow. I said, what are you looking up? He goes, everything, literally everything. So that was wonderful to receive. And then we received an email from a gentleman called Colin a week ago, and it was the most moving, most touching email about just what it meant to him to see his credits and how
he's a songwriter or
he's
producer?
A songwriter, producer. He puts his own music out, and it was a very touching email. We actually shared it with the whole team. And I printed it, actually. I have a special box of notes in my office that I read if this journey is amazing, but it can be challenging at times. So I'll read those notes to remember the why of the whole thing. But it was really, really, really special. And then yesterday after the panel, I think that there must have been 10 separate occasions where people I had never met before came up to me and were like, oh, thank you for speaking. It was really great to hear the story. And I just wanted to know more about Jaxsta. So we were there, and every time we looked a person up, their whole profile came up. And, for me, it was really hard not to get very emotional in that moment. I was really, choking back the tears because it was real.
Yeah, you're out here at a very indie conference with very independent artists, and their data's showing up in a place that it probably wouldn't have a year ago, So, that's powerful, because it means that for discovery, I mean, that's one of the things, at the opening keynote here, Tracy Maddox kind of painted the picture of, the CEO of CD Baby, painted the picture of where the industry is going and how much more independent music is and how the tables are turning towards independent creators, songwriters, and mentioned that Spotify now saying they've got 40,000 tracks a day going up on their platform, which is a huge amount of tracks. So the fact that there is now a bit of infrastructure and systems in place where those credits can get populated in an efficient way is kind of a big deal, because in the previous year, the brick and mortar era, getting into the stores was a big deal.
Right.
There's only so much space in most limited space in stores. And going digital meant everybody could get their stuff there, but how can you find it? And how, what are the tools of discovery? And playlists are the thing right now for discovery, but in some ways, I think what you're trying to put together puts some more discovery opportunities in the hands of the fan.
Totally.
To go down their personal rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Nobody needs to curate it for them. They can have that fun digital crate digging experience.
Yeah.
And that was something I was thinking about on the panel you and Questlove did with Kevin Bruner from CD Baby yesterday was, and then I went to go see his DJ set last night where you could see like him pulling information from eras and times and places and genres that he'd put together in these totally unexpected ways, and only his creative mind could come up with the Phil Collins drop into the like go-go beat or something else, some other crazy thing that but now, and I think the reason he came was because he wanted to talk about this. How do you find the credits? How do you find these relationships from project to project as well? So I'm so curious to see where this goes in terms of discovery.
Me too.
What new, like I said, like I go to the public library as a kid looking for stuff, and now I can have this whole other experience and searching for things. Just to clarify, a question I had on my mind, you're not doing anything with rights and royalties in this platform, right?
No. That is not a part of the business that we want to get into. Our whole mission is credit where credit's due, and it's based on the fact that when I started volunteering in television, I was 12 years old. So when I finished school, I had an opportunity. I actually asked my parents if I could have a gap year, and that's how I ended up in the film industry. And how I got my gigs, my next job, was all from my credits. If I hadn't been, a receptionist and then become a runner and then a production assistant and so on and so forth, you just can't get your next job without your credits. It's really difficult. And it's no different in the music industry. If you don't get your credit as the assistant engineer, as the backing vocalist, as the bass guitarist, whatever position you are, songwriter, producer, it's really hard to get your next gig, especially when you're starting out. The credits are so important, and particularly in an industry like ours where, you're often missing a lot of stuff. You're missing weddings and anniversaries and birthdays because you're working so hard. By having your credit, it validates your contribution to that production and your overall existence. Like, hey mum, hey dad, I'm sorry I missed this event, but this was what I was working on, and now you can understand why. You can see my credit and you can see everybody else that worked on the project. It's really critically important. Credits there's so much, they mean so much to the individuals, and it's often how they get their next job. It
makes me think of the cliche that's starting to pop up at music industry events where people make the joke of, at the end of something, they'll say, oh, I can't pay you, but you'll get great exposure. And at the very least, this credit makes sure that they really are getting that kind of exposure in the digital landscape.
Well, absolutely, because you never know who could end up listening to your music. You never know who could listen to a song and go, hey, man, who played bass on that track? Let's get him or her in for a session. That can happen, and it does. But if you're not credited, how do they know? You're effectively wiping out an individual's existence, which is inexcusable. So the credits are absolutely critical. I mean, I don't know of any other industry in the world where people work on spec as much as they do in the music industry. I don't think a lot of people out there know that. You don't go into a supermarket and buy a carton of milk and a loaf of bread and a carton of eggs and say to the teller, you know what, I'm going to come back next week, and if I like the produce, I'll pay you. And yet in our business, a lot of people, unless you're at the really top end of the business, songwriters write on spec. And they often don't get paid until sometimes a year and a half after a song has been released. And sometimes those songs are sitting in somebody's repertoire for 2 years before they even get released. So they write something and they can get paid a year and a half to 2 years after they originally sat in the room and co-wrote the song. I don't think a lot of people realise that. And that's why another reason why the credits are so important. It really means something to people.
Yeah, that's awesome. So just to kind of round up, the free web version that anyone can use is online now.
It is,
Jaxsta.com. The pro version is being launched
before Christmas.
Okay, of 2019. In case someone's listening to this
They
20
could
years
be.
from now.
You never know.
And then down the road, the API with commercial licenses, which is primarily for DSPs.
DSPs and appropriate opportunities. So I'm sure there are going to be applications for this that we haven't thought of. So it needs to be the right application, and then we'll be doing that. And we have a rev share back with our data partners as well. So if we do well, everybody does well. That's the plan.
So what's the call to artists, labels, publishers, distributors around getting involved and making sure their data's up to date? Or are you done with that? Or is it all there?
Oh no, we're pretty good with the amazing support we've received from the independents and distributors like CD Baby, who's been there from almost day one. We have the four majors, so we have Sydney. I'm from Sydney. We have Sony, Universal, Warner, and Merlin, which is thrilling, and we're adding more data partners all the time. So, we're keen for everyone to become a data partner. And obviously, if you're an artist or a musician, just, make sure that you get your credits. And if you're going to go to the effort of creating a beautiful piece of music, please take the 5 minutes at the end of the session to record who was in the room. And just take the time, write it down, or use a system, where you can, like Viva Sound have an incredible platform where you can actually log all of your credits, and you can do it in the session. I appreciate that's not always the right vibe, but at least afterwards write down who was in the room, who played what, who sung what, who did what, so that when that song gets released, you can send it to your distributor, you can send it to your label, and it'll end up in the front end of platforms like Jaxsta, but it will have a life irrespective of whether or not it shows up on our platform. You need to get it's not a sexy word, but you need to get your metadata right.
We finally said it. We almost got through the whole episode without the word metadata. But I like that you use credits as a way of talking about it more, just because it's a little more accessible. People kind of know a little bit more about what it is. And also I think it fits with your mission.
Yeah, credit where credit's due.
Yeah, exactly.
Story behind the music, it's critically important.
It, yeah. Well, did we leave anything else out about Jaxsta? Anything else you want our lovely listeners to know, or ways they can tap into where to find you, how to connect, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously we're on all the social media platforms, and our company contact details are on the website, but also to log feedback. When you go onto the site, there's a feedback button, and you can let us know if your credits are missing, or if you have any feedback on how the platform can be better. We obviously want to know. But there are many different ways to get in contact with us. But just go in and start doing a digital crate digging exercise.
I think the other thing is there'll be maybe less bar fights among musicians now about who did what, or fans for that matter. Yeah. Just log on to Jaxsta.
Well, I mean, if it's in our platform, it's come from a label or a publisher or an industry association of note. So it's as accurate as it can possibly be.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time to be on the podcast,
Dimitri, thank you for having me on. I love your podcast.
Thank you.
We have listening sessions in the office, so it's an honor to be here.
Yeah, that was so amazing. You showed me that photo of your team listening to Music Tectonics to the Sound Exchange episode, and I was like, this is awesome. In Australia, there's a room full of people I don't know about who are listening. So
there were 23 individuals sitting down on our sofas. We had to pause a couple of times as ambulances went past. But yeah, it was wild. That was a really great episode. I'm not sure which episode number it is.
We don't have numbers. It's if you go back a couple months, Mike Huppy from Sound Exchange.
Yeah, it was literally brilliant. If you want to understand the mechanics of the industry, it was a great episode.
And since we're doing the flashback thing, we've had Deborah and Drew from Viva Sound on.
Oh, my favorites.
We have a podcast called Love Letter to the Future, which is what Drew calls metadata.
I love it.
And so the Studio Collect platform that they have that you were talking about, we've talked about
brilliant.
it. Brilliant. So.
That platform's amazing. But yeah, they're amazing human beings. And Deb's she's been incredible to Jaxsta. Like, I just love those guys so much.
They're great. Yeah, awesome. So thanks again, Jackie. Appreciate you being being at the DIY Musician Conference and working with us on the Questlove panel. It was awesome.
That was wild, wasn't it?
We got good memories, don't we?
We do, yeah.
And thank you for listening to Music Tectonics. Metadata may or may not be sexy, but one thing that's really sexy is if you hit subscribe to our podcast on whatever you listen to. You can gather your coworkers around the old speaker and listen to a podcast episode, but you won't know about them if you don't subscribe. So please do that. You'll get notifications. And please visit musictectonics.com, our website, where we post original content on our blog. And also you can sign up for our newsletter and you'll get a $50 discount on the Music Tectonics Conference badge. The conference is taking place October 28th and 29th, 2019 in Los Angeles. It's going to be great. We're bringing together the entire ecosystem around innovation and music. And the following day, A2IM Sync Up is taking place. We've partnered with them. So if you're an A2IM member, you can bundle tickets through their website. If you're not a member and you're interested in music tech, you should consider it because it's a great way to tap into an amazing network of independent labels. So thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week with more.
You're listening to Music Tectonics.